and I'm here to talk to you about the X factor in the enterprise. So I'm going to start by reading a little section from Ecclesiastes 9, verses 13 to 15. Ecclesiastes is a book of wisdom from the Old Testament of the Bible. I'll just read it through from the Message. One day, as I was observing how wisdom fares on this earth, I saw something that made me sit up and take notice. There was a small town with only a few people in it. A strong king came and mounted an attack, building trenches and attack posts around it. There was a poor but wise man in that town whose wisdom saved the day, but he was promptly forgotten. He was only a poor man after all. So there's a few things interesting in this little story. We had the wise man. It was a small town, which I kind of can see the parallels with large enterprises. He had some kind of X factor, but this was forgotten, and it was really forgotten because he was in this poor man package. So we've got these parallels with our own organizations where sometimes people are not in the package that we might expect, and they have these hidden talents or the X factor that might help save even our organization, and we might be blind to it. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit today. So I have a comic here. Let's go to that. I found this creativity glass slipper. Perhaps you know the owner. Impossible, nothing but work boots around here. So that's that Cinderella idea where you might not actually be aware that hiding in your workforce, somebody's modding some creativity or whatever that talent might be. This particular comic I created because I had seen a situation where I had a developer working. Well, we did a design sprint, we had a cross-functional group, we had everybody coming in doing immersion, ideation, and there was one particular developer who was really quiet. He was not a native English speaker, and he was just sort of working on maintaining legacy code. But given this creative situation where he actually was fed the research material, he came up with some really interesting ideas, and he was praised by his manager, who was quite surprised, in fact. And yet 6 months later, even despite this whole exercise where everyone was being creative and this person in particular came up with these interesting ideas, the manager later said, "Oh, there's nobody creative on this team." So I was really interested how easy it is to forget that people rock. And that's what the talk is about today. So what I'd like you to do now is have a think about your own story, where you might have experienced this. And what did you think? That's supposed to be a brain. Looks a bit like a walnut, but what did you think? What did you say? What did you feel? What were you looking at, doing, seeing or doing? And I'll just pop some music on while you have a think about that. Okay, we'll stop that there. So just make sure you've noted that down, I hope, for later on in the talk. There's the reference if anyone's looking for the source of that music. Seemed appropriate. Let there be rock for letting people rock. So it seems to me that the ladder of inference can really help us understand how these situations arise. And the ladder of inference was something that Chris Argyris put forward. So he suggests that we have the observable data around us, too much to take in, but just the facts. And then on top of that, we select from that, we filter what we can to fit in our brain. From that, we typically make assumptions. We can easily draw conclusions and start to construct beliefs on that. And then that might lead us to actions that will reinforce that ladder. So we can see it again. We set it up again to see it again. So an example might be we've set up some workshops. We invite everyone to join in. Some people do, some people don't. And we notice over time that one particular person might never seem to join in. So we kind of focusing on that information, then we might kind of assume that it's their own choice that they're not joining in, and we might conclude that they really don't want to participate. We might even begin to believe that they have nothing to contribute, and that might lead us to not even inviting them in future. So it can influence our behavior towards them when we actually don't know why any of that is occurring. So what we need to do is push in to avoid this trap. The challenge is to really seek testable information, to create informed choice, and to monitor vigilantly to detect and correct error. So we see that with the developer and with the poor man. There needed to be, even though there was contradictory evidence, the beliefs became so strong that that person became invisible for that skill. And we as well, we can become blind to these kinds of talents or hidden capacities in people. And the thing is that we're smart. And as Chris Argyris points out, smart people are used to being right. So it's harder for smart people, in fact, to not trust their hunches. So we need to really watch this and try and remember to check ourselves and go, well, maybe, where am I on this ladder? Have I made some assumptions? Have I been focusing on particular information? Where is this thought coming from? So I thought maybe we could use some of these enterprise design patterns that we've been learning about this week from the Enterprise Design Pattern Book. And I've picked out a few that really help us look at things differently and inform our thinking. So this first one is pre-existing wisdom, number 2. And I drew a little comic here. We've hired you to transform our business. Oh no, not again. The employees have seen it all before. And here's a situation where rather than waltzing in and thinking that people don't already know stuff, to actually dig in, see what they know, draw out what they've got, get their contributions. It's just a suggestion. Here's another enterprise design pattern that we could use is toolkit sparking change, giving people the frameworks, giving people the methodologies that help them, enable them to flourish, bring out the best, things that manage the different statuses in the group or the hierarchies and allow anybody to bring forward good ideas or have make interesting contributions. Perhaps you've hired people with surprising hidden talents. Is this possible? It's amazing how often people are hired because they're just the best of the best of the best. We know how hard it is to get through some of those processes, and yet in the end they get put into the role and they're expected just to stay there rather than allowing them to sort of blossom and bring something fresh. Number 2, pre-existing wisdom. Oh, what happened? I went backwards. Number 19, evidence. Let's feed your mind. So this is the idea that people can contribute a lot more if they're exposed to the raw information. If you share the knowledge, it's that whole idea of knowledge is power, and sharing that raw information rather than pre-chewing it for them and telling them what to think can actually liberate their minds to be creative and to, once again, to contribute. And depicting shared understanding. This is really about making things visible, drawing things out. This is how I understand it. How do you understand it? And being able to talk to the drawing and to be able to see, well, that's interesting. I saw it more like this, and be able to form an understanding that's common through the use of the drawing. So this one kind of speaks for itself. Maybe it might turn out there's an elephant in the room. Do you see what I see? So what we're going to do now is think back to our stories and think about how enterprise patterns might have helped in that situation. Could one of these patterns that I've referred to, or maybe some of the others, for those who've done the base camp this week and who've been learning about some of the other patterns, you might think of a different one that would be appropriate there. So I'm just going to put another minute on the clock and switch back to the music. So have a little think, and then we'll wrap up after that. Right, so we'll stop that there and keep moving. So I think what I've been trying to communicate is that the X factor is hidden in people. We can't control, I think I mentioned, we can't control what other people think or how other people go on that ladder, but we can think about how we are thinking about other people, and be careful that we remain open to being surprised, and to create opportunities for people to surprise us. So in other words, let people rock. Let them rock. So that's it from me, Anna van der Aar. You can get in touch with me on at annavanderaar.rocks or via LinkedIn. Love to be in touch. Maybe I can help you out with something. So, and thanks again for the invitation to speak. It's been a great conference so far.